Hi, hello sixth grade. I'm so happy to do this video for you guys. I hope you've been liking them. I don't get enough thumbs up, so you can like my videos. That way I'll know that you watched them and that you liked them. If you don't like them, though, don't give me a thumbs down because that's not nice. No, I'm just kidding. It doesn't matter. I know these are not the most exciting videos you've ever seen on YouTube. However, I am hoping that you are learning something, and it's almost as good as having you guys in class. But I miss seeing your smiling faces. I miss laughing with you guys. And man, this has been rough, but we're getting through it and we're going to do great. And most of you have been keeping up on your assignments, which I really, really appreciate. And I know that it's going to pay off when we all come back together, hopefully after Easter. Fingers crossed, say our prayers. We can come back after Easter break. If not, you know what? We'll just keep going the way we are until we don't have to anymore. So don't fall behind on your lessons. It's okay if things take you maybe an extra day, but you don't want to fall really behind because then it'll be really hard for you to get caught up. And I want to start Number the Stars with you guys after Easter. So you need to be ready for that. Okay. So my purpose of the video today is to go over some of the worksheets that you've been doing. I just want to make sure that you understand what you're doing, that you've gotten the right answers, because normally in class we would go over these together, but we can't because we're not in class. So I want you to pull out your worksheets. You should have a 203 page, a 205 page, a 206 page, and a 207 page, all of which you've completed and submitted to me. Now, if you have not yet completed them, stop this video now, do them on your own first. That's the best way to learn, is to try it for yourself before you get the answers, okay? Now, as we're going over them, if you find that you make some mistakes, then go ahead and make the corrections and the fixes. That's okay, and sometimes you're confused about some things. Some of the answers, I'm going to tell you the words that I put, and if your words are different, but the meaning behind it is the same, then don't worry about it. You might have said the same thing in a different way, and that's okay. And that's how reading and language arts works. Sometimes we say the same thing in different ways. So if you have the essence of the answer, you're good to go, okay? But if your answer is way off, then you should look back and try and find why and fix it, okay? All right, so page 203 was about plot. And we did a little plot chart, I believe, before we all got separated, where we talked about the problem or the inciting incident or the initial conflict of a story, okay? And then we have the rising action, which is when the characters try to solve the problem. And sometimes more problems arise. Usually it gets complicated. Then there's the climax, which is the height of it. It's the turning point, the height of the tension, when the characters finally figure out a solution. And then the resolution, well, we have the falling action, but this is a short story, so they skipped over that part. The falling action would be as the problem is resolved, and then the resolution is when all the little loose ends are tied up. So they kind of skipped that falling action part in this worksheet, and mostly because, I mean, the story is only like one paragraph long. There's not much of a falling action. It just goes right to the resolution. Okay. So for the problem, number one problem, it is that Carrie and Carlos needed money. They needed money because they wanted to buy their parents a present. Okay. That's their problem, right? Okay. Then the rising action, of course, Carrie suggests a car wash. Then the number two, more rising action. They made signs and put them up. Okay. Yeah, that's it. They just made the signs and they put it up. That's your rising action. I'm sorry, I had to look it over for a second because I was thinking there was more to it, but the story was really short. Okay, so that's all. That's it. Then the climax is that they had the car wash and the car wash was a success. Okay, this is your climax, successful car wash. And then, of course, the resolution is that they were able to purchase a nice gift for their parents. And as a side bonus, they got a coupon for a car wash. You didn't have to put the side bonus in. Just the main resolution is that they were able to use that money to buy their parents a gift. Okay? So, number five, the flashback in the story is that Carrie remembers having a car wash to earn money for the band. Okay? So, that's this worksheet. If you have any questions, feel free to ask me in the comments. Okay. Your next worksheet that I had you do was 205. Okay. And this was about context clues. So context clues, remember, that is when we use the words around a word to try to figure it out. Now, the interesting thing about these questions are that some of them you have to sort of like assume you didn't know what the word meant, because you might have already known what the word meant and you didn't have to use the context clues. But in order to answer the questions effectively, you have to assume that you don't know what it meant and you're still looking for those context clues that you would have used if you didn't understand it. Okay? So number one, I need to move my book so that I don't have to keep going off camera for you guys. Okay, so number one is to find an antonym. Remember, antonyms are opposites, okay, in the passage for disinclined. So the antonym helps to find the word. The antonym is prefers. So prefers is the antonym of disinclined, and it suggests that to be disinclined is to not like something or not want it, whereas prefers is to like something and want it. So your answer should be something to that effect, okay? Number two, we're finding the antonym in the passage of former. How does that help define the word? The antonym of former is current. Current is something that is happening now, whereas former indicates something the way it used to be, the way it happened in the past. Okay? How strong does the antonym for deteriorating help define the word? Strong suggests that deteriorating is to lose strength. So it actually talks about how her voice is not as strong, that it has been deteriorating. Okay, so that helps us to understand what deteriorating means. I have to say that one slow. It's a tongue twister for me. Okay. Then where am I? 4. How does the antonym in the passage for robust help define the word? The opposite of robust in the passage is frail. Now, frail means that something is fragile. So it suggests that robust means to be full of energy or full of strength. And then number 5, the sentence or sentences that use the word from the passage and its antonym. So you could have used excited and bored. I was excited to hear my grandmother sing. My sister, on the other hand, was bored. Or you could have pulled, well, I don't know, that's probably the best example. Okay, so you should have answers that are pretty much to that effect. Okay, if you have questions, feel free to ask me in the comments. Okay. Especially if you want to know if something's right, if you're not sure if your answer was right, feel free to ask me in the comments and I will reply as soon as I can. Okay. So now we are going to move on to your worksheet, page 206. So get that one out and I'll turn to the right page. Okay, this is cause and effect. Now remember that cause is the thing that happened that made the effect happen. The tricky thing about cause and effect in literature is that the sentence doesn't always tell you the cause first. Sometimes they'll tell you the effect first, and then they tell you the cause after, which sometimes tends to confuse people. So the trick is to actually think about, if this was happening in real life, what would have happened first and what would have come after. The thing that would have happened first is the cause, and what would have happened after is the effect. Now, the even trickier part is that sometimes an effect then becomes a cause for something else, and you have a chain of events. So you just have to think in your head, what order would these things have happened if they were happening in real life and I was watching it happen right before my eyes? Okay? So let me move this again over here so I can look at it without having to like go away. Okay. So number 1 asks you what happened that caused the chain of events to come, and if that hadn't happened, would the other events had happened? So the enormous clap of thunder was your first sign of trouble. That is the first thing. And if that clap of thunder had not happened, then the other events probably wouldn't have happened, because then we wouldn't have this thunderstorm, we wouldn't have had to rush around and rearrange things for the wedding, all these things wouldn't have had to happen. All right, so what caused Charlie to fall into the cake? It was because he tripped over the dog. Number 3, what effect did the cake falling have on Dan? Well, he jumped to try to save the cake from falling. So that was how it affected him. He saw the cake falling, he jumped up and tried to save it. What caused the guests to then have to eat cake, pizza, and cookies for dinner? There was no other food because the cake fell on Anne and the food fell off the table. So they had to order pizza. And then, of course, they had the cookie table, right? Because nobody messed up the cookie table, thank goodness. Okay. Then you're on a separate sheet of paper, you're describing the effect the events might have had on the bride, the groom, and the rest of the people. Now, this is where you kind of have to use your imagination, and you can decide if the bride and groom had a good attitude and laughed it off. Maybe the bride went in the closet and cried because she thought her day was ruined. Probably not, because the story kind of indicates that they ordered pizza and they had cookies and that it was okay. But maybe she had a meltdown and then recuperated. I might have if I saw my wedding cake come crashing down. Or maybe everybody just laughed and had a great time and laughed it off. So maybe some of the guests helped clean up. Maybe some of them left. If I was the person who was, what was her name? The girl that had the cake fall on her, Anne, I might have left because I was covered in cake. So that you're just going to use your imagination, but I want good sentences. That's important. Okay. So as long as you wrote good sentences, that should be correct, unless it's like crazy, and doesn't have anything to do with the story. But if you answered the question, you wrote me complete sentences, you're good on that part. Okay? All right, so last worksheet was page 207. And I believe this was another plot worksheet, was it? I have to turn to the page. Yes. Now this one doesn't follow the diagram. It actually is asking you questions about the plot. So you had to give a little bit more thoughtful answers, perhaps. Longer answers anyways, okay? So let's see. This was the story about, visiting the grandparents, the boring old grandparents, and learning to play shuffleboard. Okay, so the conflict or problem that gets the story started is that Nathan doesn't want to visit his grandparents. Okay, that's the problem. He doesn't want to go visit them because he knows he's going to get bored. So then number 2, what happens then to make the problem worse is that he does get bored, and they make him listen to talk radio, which is boring. Well, I guess it depends on what they're talking about. But yes, okay. So he got so bored that he was actually ready to leave and run away and walk home. Okay. So now we have it's getting complicated. So how can you tell that the trip moves into the flashback? When it says he remembered, then you know you're sort of going back into a flashback. Okay, that was your cue. So then Grandpa does something that foreshadows or gives a hint of the resolution, and that is when Grandpa gives a knowing smile. The knowing smile is letting you know something good is coming. Okay? And then finally, the climax of the story is when Nathan has fun playing shuffleboard. They start playing shuffleboard together and they have fun. And then, of course, the resolution is that Nathan stays, enjoys himself playing shuffleboard, and wants to return on his next birthday. But they didn't ask you about that, but I just threw that in for you for free. Okay, so those are your worksheets. If you have any questions, feel free to email me or you can ask them in the comments. And I guess that's it. So until next time, bye.